Okay, we are live. Let's see if I can get it to... No. Alright. Quick post to the social medias. Alright. Whilst we wait for people to start showing up, let's do some of the boring measurement bits first. I've got a pen that's been opened. Although, does that really make a difference in this day and age? Who knows? Some paper. Pen. And I'll give it a couple of minutes whilst I make some measurements. Right, that's appropriately zeroed. Do I actually? Yes, I've got this side. One over here. Right, so that's 29. By roughly 35. And this will be easier. How big do I make these windows? 23 by 28. Alright. So those measurements made, that there, and start. Alright, T-minus 2 minutes. If anyone joins, if anyone has joined since I started, just say hello in the chat. I don't bite. 25. Alright, and then, so if I just cut these pieces. So those are parts for one window. And then, how many more windows do I want? So I'm imagining, actually let's leave that one till for later. So let's put another 2 here, and then at the very least, we'll put 2 up here. So let's call it 4. Then we can deal with the front separately. So that's 23. Accidentally measured 2 out at 28, so actually let's just turn it and remeasure. Alright, so that's 4 lots of 23 and then 28. 8 of these. So that's 2. Just long enough. Alright, well that gets us 4, so let's just cut these down to size. Alright, so it's 8 o'clock, official stream start time. Today, this is going to be the last stream in the Watch House series. I don't know how close, well, the last official stream in the Watch House series. I might come back when I start painting it. But beyond that point, like, it's all just more of the same. And I don't really want to just end up doing the same stuff on stream every week or whatever. So there will be a stream this Sunday where I will be starting a new project, and I'll talk a little bit more a little bit later about what that project will entail. But the next one will be a proper serious project. right length? Right. How do I keep getting this wrong? I swear I'm like an intelligent, capable adult who's done a degree and like education and things. So yeah, just before I start actually putting some of these windows together, I'm just prepping some of the woodwork. It is the sad truth that bits like this take time. If at any point you do have any questions, I am keeping an eye on the chat, so feel free to ask. 29. So what I'm doing here is just cutting some coffee stirrers to act as the window sills. I need 4 23mm long segments. Coffee stirrers, as I said last time, make for great material for stuff like this. They are cheap, soft. They take a pattern really well if you wanted to sort of hit them with a wire brush. Although it does sometimes feel a bit silly taking wood and then giving it an artificial pattern to make it look more like wood. But just keep telling yourself that you're not making it look like wood per se, you're trying to make it look like tiny wood. And unless you've got a tiny scale accurate or sort of 1/60th size tree, it's not going to have the wood grain pattern. And all the other part is that quite often we do exaggerated proportions in model making because something that was actually perfectly to scale would look off against our exaggerated proportions of the miniatures we're going to use with it. Alright, so we've got most of the parts ready, with the one major part that we're missing is the horizontal beams. So you can just, as you can sort of see me starting to prepare here, I just got 5 little piles of pieces, and all these are cocktail sticks. So the first thing I'm going to do, as soon as I remember what I did with my clippers, is I'm just going to clip the top off each of these, just to give me something to work with. I mean, I'm just going to throw these ends away, but if you were doing there's plenty of terrain uses you can find for them. Just I'm not doing anything this is all very low fantasy, or even pseudo-historical, but they're great for just putting spikes on things, or if you're sort of doing conversions. So I just need to get calipers out and double check the thickness of these pieces. So it's about 2.4 mil, about 2.5. So I need to cut these to length. So the first one needs to be cut to a length of about 33 millimeters. So I'm going to measure it out, mark it, and then cut it. And I do want this slightly proud because you can sand material off. You'll find it very hard to sand material onto a piece of wood. And then, is this now long enough to go up to 26? Yes, it is. And then I want to do 3 more 26 millimeter section or pieces. Looks like I get 2 out of each. Cocktail stick. So cocktail sticks also work great if you're working with foam, because you can use it to sort of keep bits in the right place. All of your bits in the right place, just as glue's setting, or for sort of structural support. Sometimes when I've built larger foam core buildings, I've stuck cocktail sticks into the corners of the walls just to sort of give it that little bit of extra support. Okay, so we've got all of our bits except for the wire mesh, but I'll cut that once I've actually got the frame built on all of these. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is just a little trick that I've learned from various woodworking YouTubers, is we're going to lay down just a couple of strips of masking tape, which just means that if any glue seeps out of any of the joints I'm about to make, it won't glue to the desk, it'll glue to the masking tape, which we can then quite easily remove from our cutting surface. I've seen people mix up epoxies and various other things on top of masking tape and it works fine, and I use it all the time when I'm doing woodwork. Granted, I do very small woodwork and all of my wood is cut with a laser cutter because I'm lazy, but hey, don't knock it if it works. Alright, after having set that up, I'm actually going to lie, and the first part we're going to look at is this window here, which does mean I need to remember what I did with my foam glue, which is over here. The reason I need the foam glue here is we can't use super glue and we shouldn't use hot glue to stick things to the foam bricks, so otherwise it will cause them to melt. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a small bead of glue there. And I'm just going to insert the coffee stirrer to act as a windowsill, and then I'm just spreading out the excess glue. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to test. So whilst I measured these, it's always good to test it, and no, there's two just slightly too large, so just move that a little bit out of the way so that you can see this area a little better. I'm just going to start removing just a slither at a time material until it fits snugly in the gap. Just don't know why I'm eating that out. I'm about to cut a mitre into. Okay, that now fits a lot better. So now what I can do is I can cut a 45-degree bevel in one side. This is going to help. This is going to form the basis of the joint in a minute. And then with the second piece I can line it up alongside, and then I can skip straight to just cutting the bevel. And then here on this piece, again, always test. Stuff isn't regular, especially if you've built it by hand, and especially if you're as cack-handed as I am. Right, that now fits quite nicely. So I can now bevel the two sides. And we can now do a test fit. So just placing, making sure that you get your orientations right. Just gonna place all three pieces in here. And it all fits. So here I'm going to cheat. I know I just said that we shouldn't use super glue here, but because it's not going to come into contact with the foam, we can. So I've just squeezed a little bit into all four, or into each of the three corners, and capillary action will do the rest and suck it up into, will suck it up between the wood and the foam board. That out of the way, we can now take our mesh. Now, like I said last week, or last time, this is a fine aluminium mesh. I bought it from an art supply shop where it was sold in a packet that claimed that it was automotive body repair mesh. But you can find it in all sorts: chicken wire, paper mache mesh. It comes under a million names. So once again, we're just going to measure our there. We're just going to measure the inside of the window. So we've got 20 20 by 30. Let's call it 20 by 31. It's really hard to read on the... No, actually I'm going to want to do it 30... And then we're just going to cut 20mm. And like I said last time, you can use the grid pattern to great effect. To help you cut out straight lines on here. So now we can just test fit it in here, and as I suspected, we just need to, I'll just test it the other way around quickly. Just need to take the tiniest slither off the top. You can see there it fits quite nicely. So now we take our super glue once again, and we just dab it down, and that'll just, again through capillary action, hold it in place. Now the last thing we need to do is apply the cross beam. So once again, we just need to trim it down, and there I have gotten very lucky and gotten it right on the first try. So now I just need to apply some super glue. To both ends, and then I can just press it down into place. Like so. And that's now, the glue has flashed. And I can start, well, so there, the sort of lower floor of the building is now complete. So we've got one window on this side, and then on this side we've got the door and a second window. On this side we've got a side door complete with hinges, and then on this side we've got the base of the tower, and we've also got another window. So, the next phase of the project is going to be setting up the woodwork on this part of the, on the second floor and also on the top of the tower. We're just going to put the window fragment, or the window parts, off to one side just for a little bit. Before we can put the windows on, we need to put the the framework around which they are going to sit. So the first thing we're going to take is some of these tongue depressors. So the first thing we need to do is we need to finish building the coarser framework, and then we can take some coffee stirrers and build the rest. So we take a tongue depressor, we put it in place, we mark roughly where we want to cut, and then we take a pair of clippers, and doing our best to keep it level, we put a snip, we put another snip. This scores the piece, and then we can just break it in half. We do that instead of cutting, because it's, well, instead of actually cutting it, because it's faster. And I'm just giving both ends a little file just to square them off. And then I'm taking wire brush. Ow. Mildly injuring myself. This is sharp, he says, doing it again. But then I can just give it a quick rub, and it just gives it a more, like I said, we're taking wood, cutting it down, and then giving it a wooden texture again. Now, with the remaining part, we can just file it flat again. But this time we're going to turn this on its side, and this wants to be the first so very similar to last time. We're now just cutting an angle into it. And this time we probably do want to cut all the way through. So you see there, it fits, and then it's just a case of marking out where the bottom goes. And then from there we can just again snip, snip. Do remember, if you've got any questions about techniques or materials, or if you've got anything that you'd like me, any sort of techniques you'd like me to show, just say in the chat, or even just say hello. I am keeping an eye on the chat. So we're just filing it flat again, and then test fitting, and there, it fits perfect. So now we can take the hot glue gun, which has been heating up off screen, and just apply a tiny bead of glue, and then being very careful not to burn yourself, which I'm saying more for my benefit than for your lots, because invariably whenever I get the hot glue gun out I burn myself. I'm just getting rid of this little squirt. Alright, so we've got that one applied, so we can turn it back over, take our glue gun again, and then being there. Now, this wall is quite long, and so I'd quite like to put an extra piece sort of in the middle, just to give it a little bit more visual appeal. So we're going to once again, mark, snip, snip, break, and test fit. And yeah, it's about the right length. So then we can trim it down, or file it down. Again, test fit. I'm kind of relying on how it looks to the camera here just to make sure that I've got it both straight and in roughly the right place. And here I'm just going to actually mark out with the pen, because all of this is getting painted and the foam core isn't going to show it after it's been painted. It doesn't really matter. But I just put some hot glue down, and then from there I can glue it in place, and then just to remove that that's a bit of glue. There we go. So now, just whilst we're at it, I'm just going to file this one edge down, and we can continue on this part, which I'm going to, which unfortunately is a little hard to see on the camera. But the principle is the same. Measure, mark, score, and test fit, and it fits. Don't know why I'm so surprised. And then here, I haven't taken the ends off this one yet, so I just need to do that first, but the principle is the same. Score on both sides, and then here there's just been a minor inconsistency in the wood, so I need to cut that off, and then I can just file it flat, and then I'm going to turn that sideways. Mark it. We'll mark the angle. Now this has split, but that's not the end of the world. As long as the split doesn't propagate down the wood, we're fine. If anything, it'll just introduce a little bit more character to the piece. So again, put it in place. Measure. Score. Score. Snap. Just briefly file it flat. Test fit, and it fits. So once again, bead of hot glue, burn yourself. More singe than burn. And then hot glue. Put it down. No squeeze out this time. And there. We can admire the handiwork and start the process of putting our coffee stirrers in. So I'm going to start on this face and just take a handful of coffee stirrers and then just going through the same process. Stick a coffee stirrer in place, mark a length and cut. If it goes in place, great. Take a coffee stirrer, mark a length, cut off the round bit first, mark a length, that one I've cut too short somehow, so we measure, cut, and that one is actually much closer to the right length. So here I prefer to put the glue actually on the coffee stirrer, because it means I can better control the amount relative to the size of the object that I'm gluing down. And you can see how framing the building really helps turn it from just this is a box of foam core into something more constructed. So now we're just going to repeat this for the other side. And then yeah, that fits. And then taking another coffee stirrer. Importantly, sticking it where it's going to live. Now, if you were doing this with CNC, then you could sort of with a laser cutter or a plotter or whatever. I don't own a cry cut, and from what the reports I've seen have been mixed as to whether or not you can actually cut foam core with them. With some people going, well, a lot of people going, I don't see why not, and not a lot of people saying, yes, I do, here's the settings, which I would have thought if they, given that you can find it's in their interests to make sure that settings are available for as many materials as possible. If it were a thing that people did regularly with their machines, you'd think that it'd be something they'd shout about, but what do I know? I'm not a fancy advertising executive at a major company. So now over on this wall we're just effectively going to repeat what we did over here, which is 2 horizontal bars, and then we're going to put smaller vertical bars up the top, or up the middle, and then we're going to put small diagonal lines up here just to represent roof bracing. So there's one. Just going to remove part of the end here, not bringing it down to size, but I am hopefully making it short enough now fit it here and actually mark its final length. Clip it down to size, and hey presto! So now I can glue them both in. And then just glue that down, and just take a piece, just run it along the edge just to get rid of the squeeze out, then actually take this piece, stick it in the rafters, measure it, cut it, check it, make sure it's straight, which it now is. Apply it and spread some hot glue, and then press it down. Then we can just take another piece from the scrap pile, and then once again measure, cut, test. Just a little bit proud, but once again you can remove material. It's very hard to add extra material. Is that going to be enough, or am I actually going to have to just a little bit more? That now fits much better. So then, once again, I can just apply some hot glue. Applying hot glue to myself at the same time, just to save time. Alright, so we're now very close to being complete with this side. There's just a little bit over here, but then we can move on to putting some framing up here. There is also this whole bit down here, and you can kind of see on this side where I've started, but that's mostly just tedious cutting and there's not really any finesse to it, so I'll do that off camera. So here I've got one straight edge and I've got one side, so we stick it where it will be. We can then measure it, mark it like we did before, and then cut it, and one and then I got it wrong. So we've got another piece here for try number 2. This time I'm actually going to measure across the entire length, or mark across the entire length. And aside from being a hair too long, it worked. And then I'll just take material off the flat edge. And yeah, that fits a lot better. So I can now just quickly remove that. I will then use it as a template to cut the other side, which I will cut slightly proud of that. So there, we can stick that in place. Then we can take this other piece, and we know it's going to be slightly long, but we can just test it. And then from there, I can sort of eyeball roughly how much I'm going to remove. And there we go. So then I can once again just apply the smallest amount of hot glue. And there we can. So that's now complete. You can sort of compare it to the one on the other side. The only thing we're missing are the windows, which we will add shortly. Last thing we just need to add are 2 small pieces here and here. So for a first piece, I actually happen to have a scrap that is almost the right size. So I'm just going to take the smallest amount off the edge. And knock a whole bunch of things off my desk. It now fits. So I'm just going to apply the smallest amount of hot glue there. Burn myself in the process. Get hot glue strands everywhere. Before this gets painted, of course, it'll get just a brush down just to get rid of any hot glue strands. And then I've cut that piece way too short. Let's see if I've got any other good scraps. Like an orc, I do enjoy a good scrap, but my scraps tend to be small pieces of usable craft material, not, I don't know, knife fights with grenades, knives fashioned out of grenades. Alright, I've gotten that piece in there and I now can't get it out. Oh. But hopefully that, so this was accidentally stuck on the end of there, and as you can see, the heat destroys foam. So be careful where you put your hot glue gun. And that's why I say don't use hot glue on foam. It's not that it's unsafe, it's just that it will ruin your things. Just going to stick some super glue on there just to be %100% sure. Alright, that's all of the timber framing on the second floor done. Like I said, it does need the windows doing. Actually, given the low turnout tonight, I think I'm going to call it wraps there. I've been going for about an hour. And actually, I must admit, I haven't been feeling too great this week, so I'm probably going to grab an early night tonight. But alright, well, thank you very much to those of you who did turn out. Like I said, there will be a stream about 7 PM BST on Sunday where we'll be starting a brand new project and having a bit more of a discussion about what comes next. Alright, thank you very much for watching and see you next time.